How's everyone's morning this beautiful sunny day? Well, today Diane's a bit busy, so I'm starting this up on my own first. Hello everyone. There's one viewer. I think I know who that viewer is. I'm just chilling as usual. I would like to have a little chitty chatty with you all about 10 minutes before we start reading. But if oh, hey, good morning, Twisty boy. Good morning. Slow day. Wednesday is always like this. Wednesdays. Dan will be here. My manager will be here by 11:30. I can definitely start reading anytime, basically, if there's no objection from Twisty. But usually I like to catch up with people if they are here, but none of them are here today.
It's so big.
It sure is. I like how the sound clip managed to get Strudel's like scoffing as well. I'm having my second cup of coffee already and it's only 11 a.m. I'm gonna die of a heart condition one day because of the amount of coffee I imbibe on a daily basis. Also, 16 hours ago, someone called Akaruhime1 followed. Really? Oh, little sleepy baby. Yeah, I do see it now. Aww. So cozy. I like it. I'm praising our creation of this reading space and my own throne. Well-deserved throne for the queen herself. I love it. Thank you for that. I didn't think of that. Like, I wanted to get look at the market board and add like a little knick-knack here and there. It's my favorite baby. But I'm too lazy. Also, I've been like extremely busy as well. Not to mention. Well, nobody seems to be coming in. You have two somehow? Sell the other one. Or you can save it for like, I don't know. You wanted to make like rooms for like extra rooms, right? You wanted to make a spa in one of the room, right? Yeah, we should make like a spa room in our FC so people can G-pose in there as well. We can make a spa is fine. Don't make bedrooms. A lot of creepy people there. Even a spa is like creepy enough for ERPers. They're ERP everywhere they want. You were now lottery is over, yeah. How sad. Neither of us got the personal house of the very nice location house that we wanted, and it wasn't even the first location that we wanted, which is like really nice, like the best location ever. We were like, there's no way we can get it, so we went to the second one and we still didn't get it, but that's fine. I'm pretty sure like there are like people who are like friends, like they have like a bigger group of friends who went to put in the lottery together at the same time to have like. Oh, it's for R&R after adventure in the spa room, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand your intention, But ERPers don't care about those things, okay? ERPers cares about ERPing. So, but yeah, I truly support the addition of a spa room in our FC house. It'll be really nice and cozy. Well, then, we don't really have a lot of viewers as of now. So I'm just gonna start reading, honestly. It's fine. Let me get my pen. Oh my god. Just keep yawning. Terrible. The worst. Like a Hitachi is a person. It is! It's really good. I mean, I'm not saying that. Like, it's really. Apparently, it's really good for your shoulders. I'm pretty sure it's made for your shoulders. But, degenerates do what degenerates do. Can't blame them. Hey, whatever pleasures you, right? Ha 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 ha. Well, let me finish my second cup of coffee before I fall back asleep. And then we're gonna start reading. This is the problem with like having a freelance job at home where you can like have schedules for these things, and then other people actually have normal lives where they have somewhere to attend to, like classes or work and all that, and they can't be in the game like I do, as much as I do at least. And that's the last drop of coffee. After this is just tea. Let me position myself properly, sit properly, and not kill my back by sitting like an idiot. Okay. Alright, microphone position should be fine now. Okay. On this very sunny June morning, the 1st of June, we are reading the chapter called June of Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. May was over and June had arrived. Kokoro woke up to the sound of raindrops striking her window. The sort of weather she didn't mind at all. When she was attending school, she would go by bicycle, and on rainy days she would wear her school-approved raincoat. She liked its damp smell when it spread it out to dry in the evening. Some might not like the smell, a mixture of water and dust, apparently, but Kokoro was fond of it. On an afternoon back in April, she had been unlocking her bike at the end of the school day. As she breathed in the rain, she turned to the students making their way home, and without thinking, she said, "It smells like rain." Later, she saw Sanada and her little cohort lifting their raincoats theatrically to their noses and saying with a smirk, "Oh, it smells like rain." Kokoro froze in horror. They must have been spying on her. And what's so wrong about liking the rain? School wasn't a place where you could speak honestly. She got out of bed and made her way downstairs. Today, Kokoro again told her mother that she didn't want to go to the new school. She didn't get frustrated. Outwardly, at least, she kept her voice calm. "Another stomach ache, is it?" she asked. Kokoro's stomach really did hurt, and she couldn't understand why her mother had to use that tone of voice as if she's faking illness. She replied in a small voice. To which her mother said, "Well then, you would better go back to bed." Her mother couldn't bring herself to look at her. Last month, she had not managed to go to the school even once. There were so many things she wanted to say to her mother, that she wasn't pretending to be ill, that she didn't hate the school at all. She felt that she needed to open up about all her feelings and explain them in detail, but she was afraid that if she stayed in her mother's company any longer, her mother would explode. She didn't want to hear her mother on the phone calling the school to explain yet another absence, and so, carrying her pain alone, she trudged back upstairs. Curled up on her bed, she heard the sound of the front door slamming as her mother left for work. She would always call out a cheery, "See you later," when she left, but today she walked out without a word. Kokoro slowly closed her eyes. In the silence of the empty house, she could hardly breathe. After a while, she slid downstairs and peeked into the dining room. The usual bento and water bottle were waiting for her on the table. When she went back upstairs, the rain still pounding on the window and filling the room with its wet smell, and the mirror had begun to shine. The entrance to the castle was open, inviting Kokoro inside. Kokoro found herself recalling the events of the day she had last been in the castle. As suggested by the Wolf Queen, they are all keen to check out their allocated room. When Kokoro found hers, her jaw dropped. It was so much more spacious than her own at home. Thick plush carpeting, a roll-top desk with carved flower designs, and a wide bed. "Wow!" she squealed. She gave the bed a gentle pat before perching on its edge. The mattress was soft and welcoming. On one side was a bay window with the velvet curtains and white lattice work, a window like an empty birdcage she had only ever seen in a Western fairy tale. Up against the wall was the bookcase, a huge one. Kokoro caught her breath. She thought she caught a whiff of old paper, the musty smell that hit your nostril whenever you ventured into the far corner of a tiny bookstore. The place where few people ever went. A smell she loved. The bookcase covered one entire wall and reached almost to the ceiling. As Kokoro sat on her bed contemplating her room, she felt a little dizzy. Did everyone have a bookcase like hers? Just then she thought she could hear the tinkle of a piano. She perked up her ears. Someone somewhere was hesitantly picking out a tune. It was a piece that she recognized. Someone must have had a piano in their room. She heard a sudden bang, as if someone had struck the keys in frustration. Kokoro flinched. The performance was obviously over. A teddy bear sat on top of her bed, nestled among the oversized pillows. She picked it up and went over to the books and ran her fingers along their spines, wondering if she would ever get to read them. She pulled out a couple. To her surprise, they were all in foreign languages. She might be able to read the one in English a little, but the rest were in French, German, or something else. Most of the books were fairy tales. She peered closely at the covers. Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, the Snow Queen, and the Wolf and the Seven Young Goats by the Brothers Grimm. One cover showed an old man and an old woman heaving up a huge turnip, which, she figured, must be the folk tale, The Enormous Turnip. The Wolf Queen had called them all Little Red Riding Hoods, and when Kokoro spied what looked like a German edition of the book, she felt a chill run through her. She considered borrowing a book to take home. She might be able to get through an English one, and with the help of a dictionary, she carried on browsing. She had seen some of the most striking covers before. They might not be exactly the same, but they reminded her of the pictures on the wall, the warm feeling oozing within her when she spent at the Tojo-san house. She felt a stab of pain in her heart. "You can borrow any book you like," her friend had said to her. Now Kokoro knew that would never happen. She couldn't help feeling a touch disappointed that her room didn't have piano. Even if they put one in here, Kokoro couldn't play it very well. The piano was no doubt for someone who could play it decently. Probably one of the two other girls, the ponytailed Aki or Fuka, the girl in glasses. She sank back on the bed and gazed up the ceiling, tracing its intricate flower pattern. "This is so cool," she thought. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. After a few moments, she felt impatient to see the rest of the castle, jump up to explore. Along the walls of the hallways were the largest landscape paintings that she had ever seen, illuminated by candlelight, and wandering for a few minutes she encountered a sort of parlor with a coal fireplace. There were numerous rooms beyond, and she seemed to be entirely alone. After a while, she decided to revisit the staircase in the foyer. There, leaning languidly against the wall, was the Wolf Queen all by herself. "Where is everyone?" Kokoro asked. "They went home," replied the Wolf Queen. Kokoro was taken aback. It hadn't been very long, yet they had all left without saying a word. "All of them together?" "Everyone went home on their own, though I imagine some might be back again later today." When Kokoro heard she hadn't been left out, she breathed a sigh of relief. These were kids who did things on their own. She should follow suit, she thought, and go back to her house, too. But there was nothing to do there. She considered starting the search for the key immediately, but didn't like how greedy that might look. She really had no idea how serious the others were about it. After a while, Kokoro reached her hand into her shining mirror. Slipping through the membrane of light, she glanced back briefly. The staircases were still there, but the Wolf Queen had vanished. Good morning, Yujung! Kokoro didn't venture back through the mirror for a while. She would stand in front of it and bite her lip. "Should I?" she whispered. rooted to the spot, an arm's length away. Maybe she was being a coward. But after 5 o'clock, when the mirror stopped shining, a wave of relief swept through her. But she also realized that she had a secret hope that someone, anyone, would invite her through. Had the group got together again yet? If they had, then Kokoro would be an outsider. After the introduction, she thought she might make friends with a couple of them, but with each passing day, she felt less inclined to visit. This is exactly like not being able to go to school, she thought, and kind of like not being able to attend the alternative school her mother was so keen on. But she couldn't get the beautiful, comfortable room out of her mind. She also liked the fact that no one in the group had mentioned that they were all refusing to go to school. She had never joined one of those internet offline get-togethers, but she got the sense this was similar. How none of them had gone into detail about themselves. They shared names, but that was it. No one had really said anything about who they were or where they were from. That made things easier. But the fact remained that she was feeling a slight hurt somewhere deep inside. Only with the kids who had gone through similar experiences could she really open up about what had happened and how it made her feel. And now she had gone and closed the door on the opportunity, and it was painful. Even though they had only met once, Kokoro felt an odd closeness to them all. She stowed the bento and water bottle her mother had prepared for her into a tote bag and took it upstairs. Then she changed into a clean set of clothes, gave her face a thorough wash, and stood before the shining mirror. She began to feel a touch anxious. What if one of them had already found the key? She breathed a wish that no one had found it yet. Because Kokoro had her own wish, and she desperately wanted it to come true. That Miori Sanada would vanish from the face of earth. How wonderful it would be if this girl, who humiliated her for liking the smell of rain, had never been born. With the palms of her hands, she gently touched the mirror's cold surface and pushed through. It felt like being lifted up bodily into a pool of light. She held her breath. She dared to open her eyes again and found the same tall grandfather's clock flanked by the staircases in front of bright stained glass window. She clutched her tote bag and scanned the room. There had been 7 of them. Now there was no one. She found herself slightly relieved to be alone. She turned around and looked at the mirror she had just slipped through, now beaming out all the colors of rainbow, like sunlight reflecting off an oily puddle. The 2 of the other 6 mirrors lined up in the castle foyer were likewise shining. The one on the far right and the second one from the left. The remaining 4 appeared like ordinary mirrors, reflecting staircases, and she realized with a start herself. Maybe the mirrors only shine when the kids are actually in the castle? She sensed that the Wolf Queen might suddenly turn up to explain things, but when she spun around, she was still alone. She felt a little deflated. But suddenly a thought occurred to her. The mirror she had emerged from was the one in the middle of this row of 7. There were no names plates to remind them whose mirror was whose. She thought she had better remember which was hers, something she had not noticed before. In the silence, she thought she heard a noise, so somebody was coming. She set off cautiously in the direction of the sound. It seemed to be coming from deeper in the heart of the castle, and it didn't seem to fit. It wasn't the tinkle of the piano from before or the murmur of voices. It wasn't the sound that belonged. If she wasn't mistaken, it sounded like electronic beeping from a video game. It led her to another room with a fireplace, sofa, and table. The sort of space that in an ordinary house might be called the living room. In a castle, perhaps it was better to call it a drawing room or the parlor. She wasn't exactly sure what was the right word, but it struck her as the sort of room you brought guests into, where people gathered. The door was open, so she walked straight in. Her eyes alighted on two boys, the boys she had been introduced before. Masamune, the abrupt one with glasses, and Subaru, the lean one with an unusual air about him. There was an old TV set, cumbersome and heavy, which she figured they must have carried in with them. Playing on the screen was a video game that Kokoro recognized. An action game based on the three kingdoms of China where you slice and dice your enemies. Whoa, she said in a small voice. Since she spent so much time at home, she had had hours to search high and low for the games her father had removed from her grasp in his study, in her parents' bedroom, the kitchen, the patio, patio? How do you say the word? Patio. 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 Is it? Patio. 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 Sorry. Learning English is my second language. Patio. 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 In his study, in her parents' bedroom, the kitchen, the patio, everywhere. But she had done such a good job at hiding them. I should have brought some of my stuff too, she thought. And as she stood there, a tote bag in hand, gazing into the room, and the two boys seemed to sense her presence. They glanced over in her direction, but Masamune quickly turned back to the TV screen. "Damn it!" he said. "My health bar went down. I'm gonna die." As if he was talking to himself. Kokoro realized he had spotted her, but he had pretended that he had not. She couldn't decide what to say to them, and no words came out. It was Subaru who came to her rescue. "Good morning, my new feelings." "Good morning." As before, he struck her as a little otherworldly, and as Masamune intoned that he was gonna die, Subaru used the opportunity to put down his game console and turned to Kokoro. "So you came, eh? Welcome." Then he said, "It doesn't feel right to say that. This isn't actually my house, and all of us have the same right to it." Hello," she said, a little unsteady. "Hey, Subaru." Oh, hello. Ah, it's Mirai. Good morning. Swallows on the right. Good morning, Mia. Good morning, Mirai. "Hey, Subaru," Masamune called. The way he called Subaru using just his first name, no san or kun attached, made her tense up. It was just as she suspected. In her absence, they had become friendly enough to address each other so casually. Masamune ignored Kokoro. "Hey, don't give up halfway. What am I supposed to do if I die because of you, eh?" Ah, sorry. Subaru gave Masamune a look. Do you want to sit down? He asked Kokoro. Will you play with us? Did you bring those games with you? Um, Masamune did. Even hearing his own name wasn't enough to take Masamune away from his games. His eyes remained glued to the screen as he weighed up his controller. Then he spoke. Talk about heavy. This old TV set was the one my dad had to put away in the shed, he said. He had forgotten all about it, and I figured he wouldn't notice it's missing, so I lugged it over here. But boy, you really want to kick the thing. It's so damn heavy. The console is so old. We weren't even using it anymore. He got this out in a monotonic stream of words, and Kokoro wasn't sure who he was talking to. Manage a simple, "Oh, I see." Then, "Are you two the only ones here today?" "For now, yes. Though some might come later. We have been here every day, but the others sometimes come, sometimes don't." Subaru smiled, and a smile that Kokoro seemed graceful. "You haven't been over here for a while, have you, Kokoro-chan? I thought maybe you weren't interested." "Well, She didn't know where to start. She felt as some implied criticism for turning up all of a sudden, and was about to say something, but Subaru spoke first. "Sorry," he said. "I call you Kokoro-chan. It's a bit cheeky." "No, it's okay." She had only given them her first name so far, so it was understandable. He really was an unusual guy after all. Not that she liked Masamune's ways of ignoring her, though that seemed like a more common reaction for a boy. She took a closer look around the room. On the wall hung a large painting of a light blue lake and rugged forest, and a mighty set of knight's armor, which took her by surprise. She was startled, too, by the stuffed deer's head and antlers, which reminded her for a second of the wolf's queen's mask. She had seen and read about all these things in anime and fairy tales, but never seen them with her own eyes. The two boys seemed settled on the thick patterned carpet and engrossed in their games. Subaru picked up on her silence. "You okay?" he asked her. Masamune had already restarted the game and glued to the TV. "Yes!" he shouted at the screen. Then, "Are you kidding me?" "Aren't you gonna look for the key?" Kokoro asked. "Hmm?" At this rate, Masamune would never speak, no matter how long she waited. So she made up her mind to speak to him first. "Masamune-kun, you sounded as though you wanted to find the key to the wishing room, so I thought maybe everyone had been looking for it while I wasn't here, and perhaps had found it already. But if I found it, we wouldn't be able to come back, because the castle would close up." Masamune had become more talkative. He still wouldn't look at her, though. "So that means no one's found it right yet. So that means no one's found it yet, right?" he went on. I look for it for myself quite a bit, but nothing so far." He spoke bluntly, but at least he had answered her question. "I see." "He looked pretty hard for it, did Masamune?" Subaru chuckled. "Shut up," Masamune muttered. "I helped too, but we haven't found anything yet, so we decided to play video games instead. We started in Masamune's room, then Aki-chan suggested that we play in where everyone can join, instead of shutting ourselves away in a room." "I see," Kokoro said again. "They haven't come in yet today, but Aki-chan and the others have been over now and then." "Aren't you interested in the wishing room, Subaru-kun?" Kokoro was struck by what Subaru had said about helping Masamune. "Me? Not really," he said. "To be honest, I'm not at all that interested in having a wish come true. Looking for the key sounds fun, like solving a riddle, but I'm more interested in Masamune's games." Subaru gestured at Masamune dueling with the TV screen. "I don't have any games myself," Subaru went on. I've hardly ever played any, and when he let me try, I was surprised how much fun it is. Plus, don't you think this castle's wicked? That's what I'm saying. We could just find the key and keep hold of it. Then we are good as long as we don't open the wishing room until next March. Finally, Masamune was looking up, but he addressed Subaru. Then the castle won't close, and we can use it right up to the very end. That suits me, but others might want to have their wish come true straight away. And if they got hold of the key first, then it's all be over. Which is why it would be better if I find it, so I got Subaru to help me out. That way we can play video games here until March. So, apart from you, Masamune-kun, are there others looking for the key too? Kokoro was confused. She had never thought about it that way. To find the key but keep the castle open until the penultimate day in March. Masamune shot her an irritated look. It seems like it, Subaru said. Nobody really says so out loud, but it seems as if everyone is after it. Nobody's found it, though. The two of us look in all the obvious places, in the drawers, inside the candlesticks, under the rugs, behind the paintings, all over the place, but no signs of it so far. We have still to look in our rooms. We checked with the Wolf Queen, didn't we? And she said she couldn't do anything to give anyone an advantage. Each room is a totally private space. There might be a clue somewhere, though. And she said we should talk to each other regarding that. A clue? Kokoro asked. There are hints placed all around the castle, and she said that we should do our best to find them. Masamune imitated the Wolf Queen. Kokoro knew now that the Wolf Queen had spoken to the others again since her last time. Do you want to search for it too, Kokoro-chan? The key that will make a wish come true? Well, After Subaru had declared so calmly that he wasn't so interested, she hesitated to respond. She didn't want to be seen as a rival in the search for the key. Which is why when she answered, she was a bit vague. I was just wondering. Then, Masamune came up with something startling. So what I'm thinking is, she hasn't been to the castle for a while because she's one of those students who's still going to school. So why should she turn up today? Is she pretending to be sick? Has she taken a day off? Eh? Her eyes widened in surprise. He seemed to be directing his words to her, but he must meant Kokoro. Masamune looked at her properly for the first time. He had paused the game and the screen showed a start display. School, Masamune repeated in a monotone. I figured you must still be in school. So are you? Kokoro felt a wave of heat rush from her ankles up to her face. Her first reaction was, why? Hadn't they sort of promised not to mention school? She found it comforting. What if I show off a little? Thought Kokoro. Yes, I'm going to a school, but I'm sort of sickly, so some days I can go, other days I can't, and I spend quite a bit of time at hospital having tests, etc. A nice idea, now that she thought about it. How great it would be if only that were true. Her parents wouldn't see it all as an emotional issue then. They would have definitely preferred it that way. She began. She let another 10 seconds pass. She knew she would tell a lie, but Masamune was still speaking, super casual. Nah, just ask because I figured if you were going to school, we wouldn't have much in common. No worries. Eh? Kokoro looked at Masamune. As usual, he didn't look back. Because, it's normal. Compulsory education means going to school, letting the teachers tell you what to do without complaint. It's way beyond not cool. It's nightmare. Masamune, that's going a little too far. Subaru smiled wryly and glanced at Kokoro. I think you startled her. But it's true, Masamune insisted. My parents had a huge bust up with my homeroom teacher in 7th grade. They figured a pathetic school like that was not worth going to and gave up on it. So your parents said you don't have to go? Kokoro found that hard to believe. Masamune said, giving her a quick look. Then he nodded. It's as if even if I said I wanted to go, my parents would have stopped me because they despise that kind of school. Kokoro's eyes widened. But it's true, isn't it? Masamune continued. The teachers are so full of themselves. And they are humans after all. They might have a teaching certificate, but most of the time they're not even as smart as we are. The whole thing makes me want to puke. That's the principle Masamune's family seems to follow, Subaru added. Still, with a wry smile on his face, they figure out what you study in school isn't helpful, so it's better to work out your own study at home. They don't think it's Masamune's fault if he feels he can't fit in at school, because some people do and others just don't. It wasn't that I couldn't fit in or anything, Masamune said, giving Subaru a look. Actually, my grades aren't so bad. I went to elementary school, but where I studied was at Juku, after school, prep school, and online classes, and didn't pay much attention in lessons at school. But still, when I took those national mock tests, my grades and ranking were good. So even now, you're just going to Juku and doing online classes? Just Juku? But not the ones around here where the instructors suck. My parents found a place with a better reputation, and that's where I'm going. The Juku classes were in the evening, he explained, so during the day he was free. You know, schools, the regimented system for people who prefer to go along with the crowd because everybody else is going. I know the guy who developed this video game, and he hardly ever went to school because he said it was boring. Said the teachers and the other kids were a bunch of lame morons. Wow, imagine that, developing video games. Kokoro took a look at the game he was playing. It was a super popular game, a bestseller all over the world. Are you for real? She said. So you know the man who created this? Yeah. Wow. She remembered now. The small game console that he had with him the very first day was the model she didn't recognize. And I was wondering if maybe that game console you had before was something that hasn't gone on sale yet? Eh? Oh, that one. Masamune held Kokoro's eyes for a second. You must mean the one he asked me to be the tester for. What do you mean tester? Kokoro asked. It's like a test drive. He gave me a new console to play the game on, even though it's still being developed. He wanted to see what kids think of it, as well as adults, whether we notice any glitches or anything. Wow, you're so lucky! She couldn't help saying. Masamune was a junior high school, like her, yet he had adult acquaintances. It made him seem suddenly more sophisticated. That's wicked, Subaru said. When Masamune told me, I was so stunned. So, I think going to school is pretty pointless. I mean, I'm going to work in gaming myself, so I'm not going to be using the ordinary path. My friend said that he values my opinion and even invited me to work for his company in the future. Invited you? In the future? That left Kokoro even more dumbfounded. Masamune was on a roll. This one I've brought today is a version 2. I have version 3, of course, back at home. I was asked to be a tester for a different version 4, but it didn't work with this old TV. The terminal is different. Kokoro didn't understand the technical side of it, but marveled all the same. Masamune seemed quite satisfied with his overreaction. The 4 should blow you away, he laughed. So when you play games even though you're a girl? How fucking sexist. Yeah, Kokoro said. Lots of girls do. A couple of her friends from elementary school came to mind. Really? Masamune said. Yeah, but wow, Kokoro thought. The whole thing was so astonishing she was speechless. Parents telling their children that there's no need to go to school? Or rather, he didn't have to go. And that if he couldn't get on at school, it was the teacher's fault. Her parents would never think of it that way. I just asked because I figured if you were going to school, we wouldn't have much in common. He was telling her it's okay not to go to school, a sort of roundabout, impolite way of saying it, sure, but this was the first time anyone was positive about her not going to school. Is it the same for you, Subaru-kun? The same as Masamune-kun? She hadn't meant to ask, but she did anyway. Yeah, something like that, Subaru said, nodding. He didn't go any deeper, but his troubled expression told her he had preferred not to probe. She was dying to hear more about this too, and about the other kids who hadn't come over yet that day, and what they were dealing with. Kokoro realized she had misunderstood. She had surely been all worried because they weren't going to school, and they had been avoiding the subject, but now that didn't seem to be the case. At least with Masamune and Subaru, they seemed to have just brought it up because they didn't think it was it was all that important. Do you want to play with us? Subaru, controller in hand, and turned to Kokoro. Masamune sitting cross-legged and looking over at her. Sure, she said, and she took the controller from Subaru. One moment, please. So sorry, I had to check on my cat. Alrighty. No one else came to the castle that day, which, to be honest, was a relief. Kokoro had never experienced this before, having fun with two guys, with no other girls around. It made her anxious, wondering what the other girls, Aki and Fuka, would think if they ever turn up. You should come tomorrow too, Subaru said. Time had passed in a flash. Kokoro and the boys had played right up until the castle closed at 5 o'clock, taking an occasional break to go home to grab a snack or to use the toilet. The castle had baths, but for some reasons no toilets. But other than that, they had spent the whole time immersed in video game. Until the day her dad had confiscated her video games, Kokoro had played every day too, and she was fairly skilled. Even Saki Masamune seemed to accept her as one of the gang. We'll probably be here, so if you're free, you should come, he echoed. Thank you, said Kokoro. Honestly, she was so happy she wasn't so sure how to respond. Other than her parents, it was so long since she had talked like this with anyone. She didn't feel afraid to come here anymore. Just then she heard a high-pitched howl, much like the Wolf Queen's, but the Wolf Queen was nowhere to be seen. We always hear it at 4:45, the Wolf Queen howling, Subaru explained. That's a signal for us to go home, I think. Isn't the Wolf Queen here every day? Sometimes, but sometimes not. Like the young lady said the first day, if we call her, she will appear, and sometimes, even when we don't, she pops out of nowhere. Do you want to call her? Kokoro shook her head quickly. She remembered the time she had run away and the Wolf Queen had tackled her to the ground. The ghost still scared her. Kokoro was impressed too with how civilized Subaru sounded, referring to the Wolf Queen as the young lady, though she actually looked like a little girl. When they were back in the grand foyer in front of the row of wood mirrors, Kokoro suddenly remembered something. So, where is the wishing room anyway? Have you seen it yet? This room, capable of granting one single wish, was somewhere in the castle. She wasn't sure if they have already located it. Masamune and Subaru exchanged a look. Behind his glasses, Masamune screwed up his eyes. Haven't found it yet. Then you mean we don't only have to find the key, but also the location of the room, Subaru added, and Kokoro breathed out slightly. I see. Come on. She should have told us that at the start, that little Wolf Queen brat. Masamune's words were so funny Kokoro couldn't stop herself laughing. What? He asked her. Nothing. But it was funny all the same. Cute in a way, how this guy was so rough in his way of talking added the honorific Sama to her title when talking about the Wolf Queen. If she had pointed this out, it would probably irritate him, but still, it was amusing. I see, she thought. Masamune's use of polite honorifics didn't exactly match the level of Subaru's young lady, but Kokoro was now sure of one thing. Both these boys were real gentlemen. See ya! Masamune stuffed the game console into his backpack and gave a little wave as he stood in front of the shining mirror at the end of the row. Yep! Subaru nodded as he touched his own mirror and the second from the left. The surface seems to melt under his fingers, drawing in his hand. It was like putting your hand into a rushing waterfall and stopping the flow of water. It startled Kokoro, but the two boys were clearly used to it. It was the first time she had seen someone use it to enter a mirror. It made her feel a bit strange. These mirrors, with just a touch of the palm, would connect up with the other kids' room, just like hers did. How could she visit their rooms, perhaps, without them even knowing? Not that she particularly wanted to. That would be worse than sneaking a peek into someone else's diary. Kokoro shivered at the idea of an intruder in her room. But Masamune and Subaru, both standing with a hand inside their mirror as they waved goodbye, were people she could trust, and the same held true, she imagined, for the others. Bye! After waving them off, Kokoro thrust out her hand towards her mirror and passed into the veil of light. Kokoro visited the castle the very next day. She found she had no problem being with the others again, and wondered why she had been so bothered about it before. It was just 10 in the morning. She was playing video games with Masamune and Subaru in the living room, now transformed completely into their game room. When Aki breezed in with a "Hi people!" Kokoro hadn't seen her quite some time, but Aki's lively "Hey Kokoro-chan, how have you been?" made her forget. Aki had said that she's in the 9th grade, the last year of junior high, and when she was with Aki, Kokoro definitely felt like she was her senpai, her senior. Kokoro was happy that Aki addressed her in a familiar way, adding "chan" to her name, but she was unsure how to address her back. "Hi, Aki-senpai," she said, at which Masamune burst out laughing. "Jeez! This isn't some school club, so what's with the senpai?" Okay, so what should I call her?" Kokoro didn't think she deserved to be laughed at, but Aki said, "Hey, I don't mind. I like being called that." "I don't mind what you call me, just plain Aki or Aki-chan, it's all good. I find it kind of endearing that you're so polite, Kokoro." Aki said this jokingly, but now Kokoro heard herself being called within moments just plain Kokoro. It did catch her by surprise. Kokoro marveled at Aki's communication skills, the way she adroitly changed how she addressed people. It was clear there wasn't anything awkward in her relationship with the boys either. So how was it that someone like her couldn't cope with school? She would easily be one of the popular girls. "You are so sweet, Kokoro. I imagine any senpai would treat you well." I actually stopped going pretty early on, so I don't know any of the older students. And I'm not in any club or anything either. Even if Masamune and the others insisted it wasn't something to be embarrassed about, she would still say I stopped going, leaving out the part about school. When she remembered how she hadn't even gone to the orientation for any of the clubs, it made her feel miserable. Although she had been just joking, Aki's expression turned a bit chilly when Kokoro mentioned clubs. Masamune and Subaru both opened their mouths in surprise, and by the time Kokoro had become aware of the atmospheres, Aki had turned to leave. "I see. So you weren't in any clubs. The same as me then," Aki said. "Eh?" "I'll be in my room today," she added. "Seems Fuka is here too, so why don't you guys invite her?" She strode down the hallway towards their individual rooms. The hallway had red carpeting lit up by the candles on either wall. Kokoro watched through the glow as the tall Aki faded into the distance. Timing it with Aki's exit, Subaru sidled over Kokoro. "One thing you should know," he whispered. Kokoro was confused. Had she said something to upset Aki? That's a touchy subject. Aki-chan doesn't like to talk about school very much. Oh, Kokoro could sympathize. She felt the same way. Problem was, Masamune and Subaru talk about in such an easygoing way she thought that she could tune into that. Masamune said with an air of disdain, I don't think it's something we need to worry about. But his eyes remained glued to the game monitor. Kokoro remembered how they first introduced it themselves. They had only said their names and year in school, and because that's what Aki, who had gone first, had done. She stared down at the hallway after Aki. As Subaru had said, it was definitely a touchy subject. Kokoro murmured, so is Fuka-chan here too? She was trying to recall what Fuka looked like. Fuka was in her second year of junior high, so she too was a senpai to Kokoro, 1 year ahead of her. Masamune said, a little sarcastically, what, aren't you gonna call her senpai too? Kokoro was not used to being teased and began to feel a little flustered. She shook her head vigorously. No, it's just I use it with Aki-chan because I don't know. She seems so much like a senpai. Well, Subaru and I are your senpai too, for that matter. Masamune was clowning around, kidding her. Kokoro was still trying to work out how to respond when he added, Fuka comes here a lot, almost every day, though she doesn't hang out with us much. Does she stay in her room? Yeah, I invited her once to play video games, but she said she doesn't play. I thought she was joking. I mean, she looked like such a loser. Masamune! Subaru's tone was sharp. What? Masamune protested. But when he saw the glare in Subaru's eye, he let out an exaggerated sigh. She seems to stay shut up in her room a lot, he said, changing the subject. I don't know what she does there, but she's basically a loner. Changing the subject, Subaru said, he wasn't here yesterday, but Ureshino usually turn up after 1 o'clock. I see, Kokoro nodded. That made sense to her, that he came in the afternoon. Seemed to suit him to have lunch at home first. Like Kokoro, Ureshino was in his first year of junior high, and as she reflected, she remembered the other kid was also in the 7th grade. But what about the other boy? Kokoro asked. Masamune turned his gaze lazily on her. Who? Rion-kun. Ah, the dish. His words sounded barbed. It wasn't because he was handsome that she had asked, but she had no idea how to explain that. What's a dish? Subaru muttered. Is it something bad? When Masamune didn't respond, Subaru turned to Kokoro and raised his eyebrows. He always gets here in the late afternoon, Subaru replied in Masamune's place, always wearing a jersey, which made me think that maybe she's attending a juku or studying somewhere during the day. I often bump into him just as the castle is closing. She plays video games with us too, Masamune added. The hands of the grandfather's clock were pointing to 12. Kokoro went home, ate the curry her mother had prepared, brushed her teeth, and headed to the castle. When it came to lunch, it seemed they had different habits. Some went home to eat, others brought in bentos. For Kokoro, going home for lunch and then returning to the castle felt like a school timetable all over again. Thinking they could all share it, she had taken an apple bag with her. Her mother had insisted that she peel apples herself and put it into a tote bag, and together with a small fruit knife, the blade wrapped in foil to keep it safe. As she passed through the mirror and emerged into the castle, the mirror beside her was also shining. It was Fuka. She was going in the opposite direction on her way home. Oh, Kokoro said, and Fuka, her palm already inside the mirror, turned around, her face expressionless. Hello there. Hi. Her face was blank, but her voice still had that smooth, sparkling quality to it. Within seconds, Fuka had turned to face the mirror, slipped inside, and vanished. Back in the game room, Kokoro noticed that Ureshino had arrived, just as Subaru had said. He was engrossed in the video game and hunkered down where Kokoro liked to sit. The TV had seemed pretty big, but with Ureshino now seated in front of it, it seemed to have shrunk. He was that bulky. Yesterday, she had been in the game room with Masamune. He had more or less ignored her, but today, when Ureshino spotted her, he immediately looked up. Ah, let's see. So, you are Kokoro? Yes, it's Kokoro-chan, said Subaru. Ureshino had already fudged any chan or san suffix, but Subaru had stepped in to help. Kokoro-chan, Ureshino said, a little modestly, and gave her a look. I didn't think you'd be coming. She started dropping in yesterday, Masamune said. She's pretty smart at video games. Good to see you again, Ureshino-kun, Kokoro said. Since there were only a handful of them, Kokoro found her words more easily than she ever had at school. Good to see you too. So now I have one more rival for the key, he said casually. Kokoro tensed up. Not another pain in the neck is what he seems to be saying in a roundabout manner. The way he was so concerned about food the first day, she thought, and there I was thinking he was cute and cuddly. As Kokoro sat down in front of the TV, Ureshino, controller in hand, seems nervous about whether anybody else was going to join them. Picking up on it instantly, Subaru said, If you are expecting Aki-chan, I doubt she's going to turn up. Ureshino sat straight up, while Subaru continued. She was here this morning, but she's probably in a room at the moment. Oh, Ureshino's shoulders slumped in disappointment. That's dumb, Masamune muttered. He let go of the controller, a rare move for him, and looked over at Kokoro with a grin. Do you know what Ureshino's wish is? Kokoro shrugged. By wish, he must meant Ureshino was hoping the wishing room would come true. But I just got here, so how would I know? She thought. Masamune shot a grimace at Ureshino. He wants to take Aki out. Oh? Kokoro managed to say before Ureshino yelled out, Hey, why are you telling? His face turned beetroot, and though he insisted Masamune hold his tongue, his tone of voice didn't seem that annoyed. Subaru said nothing. Ureshino-kun, you mean you like Aki-chan? Kokoro asked. Ureshino didn't reply. Kokoro was thinking she shouldn't push it, but after a while he said quietly, Yeah, that's right. Is there a problem? No, no problem. Love at first sight, Ureshino said. I told Aki how I feel, but she shot me down. That was about a week after we started coming here. Pretty fast, no? Aki-chan was confused by the whole thing, Subaru said to Kokoro, with a knowing smile on his lips. He lowered his voice. Aki felt a little awkward when Ureshino looked at her. Oh. There were other kids Kokoro knew who were enthralled to similar kind of crush, but these were almost always girls. In fact, pretty unusual for a boy to show his feelings so clearly. In fact, it was the first for her. Masamune, Kokoro-chan doesn't know what's going on, so why do you have to tell her? Ureshino sounded angry, but he also seemed a little pleased. Kokoro felt that she had to say something. But she's pretty amazing, Aki-chan, she said. She's smart and fearless. I completely get why you would fall for her. Ureshino looked surprised, but then he broke into a smile. I know, right? He said. Still, she had never expected love to blossom in 2 weeks. She had been away from the castle. They had said that Aki was not especially happy about it, but supposing Ureshino did locate the key to the wishing room, would Aki fancy him back? What did he really feel about it all? Kokoro's head was in a whirl. Say a strange power did come into play and Aki fell in love with Ureshino. Would that be the original Aki who Ureshino had fallen for? Or somebody manipulated your thoughts and feelings? Would you still be the same person as before? Kokoro took out the apple she had brought and placed it on the table. Instead of reaching out for a controller, she sank into the sofa. I brought an apple. Anyone want some? Ureshino's face lit up. Can I? His overenthusiasm left Kokoro a bit confused, but there was one thing she clocked about Ureshino. He was not a bad person. She smiled at the thought. Masamune and Subaru looked uncertainly at the apple. Aren't you going to take it off? It took her a bit to understand they meant the apple peel. Oh, sure. Masamune said, but didn't elaborate. Kokoro didn't find his response unusual and went to fetch her knife to peel the apple. She realized she had forgotten to bring a cutting board or a plate, so she sliced it on top of a plastic bag. You're amazing, Kokoro-chan, Ureshino said, his eyes lingering on her hands. You're really good at peeling apples. You're like my mom. Masamune made no comment, but did munch happily on a couple of slices of apple while he continued his video game. As late afternoon came, Kokoro decided to explore the castle. The absence for a plate for the apple made her think she would try to locate a kitchen if there was one. The Wolf Queen had said there was nothing to eat here, but there could still be plates. The castle was most definitely cavernous, yet not as absurdly vast as those dungeons she had seen in video games. The grand foyer with the staircases and the 7 mirrors was situated at one end of the castle. From there extended the long red-carpeted hallways towards their individual rooms. Beyond that was a common area, including the game room where they played video games. There was a dining room too, which she had spotted earlier. She stepped in gingerly and let out a yelp of surprise. Through this particular window she could see outside. The windows elsewhere in the castle were made of frosted glass. The greenery was clearly visible. A closer look revealed an inner courtyard, and beyond that lay the wing of the staircases and mirrors, forming a U shape around the courtyard. Kokoro was dying to venture outside, but there was no handle on the French window to open it. Apparently the courtyard was just there to be admired. Underneath a cedar tree was a bed of marigolds and salvia in full bloom. Placed in the center of the dining room was an extravagantly long table. Kokoro often watched dramas where parents sat at either end of the long table. The dining room also boasted a fireplace where it hung an oil painting of a vase filled with flowers. The room was still and the cold lingered, as though no human presence had felt in a long while. The table was draped neatly with spotless tablecloth. Kokoro spied a door at the opposite end of the dining room. It led her directly into the kitchen, which turned out to be even grander than she had been expecting. She went over to the sink and tried lifting and lowering the handle on the tap, but no water came out. A mighty stainless steel fridge stood in the corner, but it proved to be completely empty. She stuck her hand inside to check whether it was on. It was not. The shelves along one wall were filled with white ceramic plates, soup bowls, and tea sets, none of which seemed to have ever been touched. Why does this castle exist if no one lives here? Kokoro wondered. All the individual pots and pans were visible, but there was no gas or water. There were fancy bathtubs in the bathroom, but no toilets. She wondered where the electricity came from to power their video game. As she turned to continue her stroll through the castle, she thought how awkward it would be if she bumped into someone, like a while ago when she encountered Fuka near the mirrors. Lost in thought, she gazed through the doorway at the brick fireplace in the dining room. Suddenly, she recalled the wishing room key. Had someone already checked inside the fireplace? It must have opened up into a chimney. Or maybe, like the bathrooms and kitchen, the fireplace wasn't actually functional. She peered into the fireplace and let out a cry. It wasn't the key. But she did find a faint axe about the size of her palm. It seems to have been there for a while, since there was a light film of dust over it. Maybe it was just a flaw in the bricks, but no. On a closer inspection, someone had clearly marked an axe. Just as she was about to stand up again, she heard a loud "Whoa!" from behind her. Kokoro yelped and spun around. A face with a wolf mask, the wolf queen herself, whom she hadn't seen for quite some time. Wolf Queen! Are you looking for the key all by yourself? Impressive. Don't frighten me like that! Kokoro's heart was pounding. She noticed that Wolf Queen was wearing a different outfit, a green dress embroidered at the hem. Did you find the key? Asked the Wolf Queen, to which Kokoro replied, "No." Announcing that she was going to join the others, she set off towards the game room before the Wolf Queen could comment. Halfway down the hallway, she spotted someone coming towards her. Kokoro slowed down her steps until she could see who it was. It was Rion, the dish, in Masamune's words. "Hey!" he called. He wasn't wearing a sweatsuit today, but just tracksuit bottoms and a t-shirt. The trousers, though, weren't the baggy style required by school, but the smarter black Adidas version. On his t-shirt was a Star Wars villain. Kokoro had never seen any of the films, but she recognized the character. Kokoro wondered whether she should try to explain why she had not visited earlier, but Rion beat her to it. "Long time no see," he said casually. "Ah, I'm Kokoro," she said. Rion laughed. "Come on, I know that already." So he knows my name. The thought made her happy. Rion was wearing a watch, which he didn't seem to have when they previously met. She spotted a Nike swoosh mark on it. "Where?" Rion asked when she saw how she was staring at his watch. "Oh, I was just wondering what time is it." Rion pointed down the hallway. "There's a clock there, you know." And of course there was, the tall grandfather clock in the middle of the foyer with its staircases and mirrors. "Ah, yes," said Kokoro, noticing how Rion's light brown hair hung loosely just above his smiling eyes. So Subaru was right. Rion mainly came over in the late afternoon. He had speculated that Rion probably spent the day at a juku or in lesson somewhere. Kokoro found it pretty strange that Rion and Aki too seemed so laid back and able to join juku and external lessons, yet still had dropped out from school. They both looked like they would be really popular. When they reached the game room, more of the group had gathered. Fuka was sitting on the sofa in front of the table. The plastic bag Kokoro had brought, the apple was still in there. She was reading a book. "Well, well, everyone's here today," the Wolf Queen said, appearing diminutively in the doorway. Fuka looked up from her book, and the boys from their video games. They greeted Rion with a quick, "Hey, sup?" Fuka didn't say anything. She glanced at the Wolf Queen, and just as quickly she dropped her eyes back down to her book. "Hey, Kokoro-chan," said Ureshino. "Yes? Do you have like a boyfriend or somebody you fancy?" Her eyes widened at this question out of the blue. Kokoro wondered if he was dying to talk to somebody about his infatuation with Aki. She looked around at others and realized something was in the air. Masamune had stopped playing the video game and was grinning. Subaru had an awkward smile on his face. Kokoro stuck for a moment, stood stiffly, and Masamune said teasingly, "My commiserations." Even Kokoro understood that in the moment what he was getting at. "Tell me, Kokoro-chan, will you be here tomorrow? What time do you think?" Kokoro didn't respond, and he asked again. "I don't know," was the best she could manage. She could see the Wolf Queen teasing stare from the corner of her eyes. As the Wolf Queen asked Masamune, "So, what's going on now? Has Ureshino switched his crush already?" She gave a small giggle. Ureshino grimaced at the Wolf Queen. Then his expression changed. He looked at Kokoro. Did you hear what she said? He sounded on the verge of tears. Kokoro had no clue how to respond. Rion shot her a quick look and changed the subject. So what kind of games did you bring today, Kokoro? Then a high-pitched voice. How dumb can you get? Fuka speaking to Ureshino. Her tone was piercing and caustic. Kokoro bit her lip in confusion. Aki, Rion, and the others all seemed so normal, and she still wondered why they wouldn't go to school. But when it came to Ureshino, she knew exactly why. He was one of those boys in love with the idea of love, love for the love's sake. Everyone pitied him, and it was no wonder he didn't go to school. And that is the end of June chapter. It's a little bit shorter than May, but maybe because I read it too fast, I'm not sure. But I'm not going to start July because it's gonna be way off my reading hours, I think. Yeah, July is really long, I think. Hang on, let me check. Yeah, I don't know. Should I read July? I think I could read July. I don't know. I still have 14 minutes. I can read July. Let's do it. 1 second, please. July. Let's do it. By July, Kokoro was feeling even more uncomfortable going to the castle. And it was all because of Ureshino. I brought some cookies, Kokoro-chan. Would you like some? Kokoro-chan, when did you first fall in love? For me, it was back in kindergarten. She enjoyed going to the game room, but in the afternoon, Ureshino would appear and start pestering her with personal questions. Masamune would grin, which she hated, and Kokoro found herself spending more time alone in her room in the castle. Even when she was holed up there, Ureshino would knock, Kokoro-chan, are you in? And she realized there was no escape. Whenever she decided to look for the wishing key, Ureshino would be right there, tagging along. Can I come with you, Kokoro-chan? She was the one who had said that they were rivals in the search, so how could it be okay? Kokoro picked up somehow from the way the others behaved that when she wasn't there, Ureshino took the liberty of referring her by her first name, no doubt describing her as not totally my type, but more the homie type. The guy's a little warped, she thought. It wasn't that she really liked Kokoro, though. What she liked was to play up how much she enjoyed being in love. Kokoro found she couldn't come right out and tell him she wanted him to stop. If she behaved coldly, he would immediately start bad-mouthing her to the others. Kokoro-chan, what sort of wish are you hoping will come true? When Ureshino asked this so light-heartedly, she said, I haven't decided yet. She knew if she told him what she really wanted, that a girl from her class would disappear forever, it could set him off with more questions. Oh, is that right? As they walked along the hallway, Ureshino kept giving her looks. She seemed to want to ask her something else. In manga, often the heroes would use weird objects to get others to do what they wanted or to manipulate them. She realized they must be as ridiculous as what she was dealing with here. When Ureshino let Aki know that she had switched his affection to Kokoro, Aki grimaced. That's going to be rough on you, she said, openly sympathizing. After that, Aki started spending less time in her room. Unlike Masamune, who teased her, Rion and Subaru never brought up any love-related conversation when Kokoro was around, which was a great relief. She heard Ureshino hesitantly asking Rion, Do you have a girlfriend? You're not thinking of making one of these girls here your girlfriend, are you? To which Rion replied, Not really. Ureshino surely asked the other boys the same thing. That meant she didn't need to worry about Aki or Rion, and Masamune's teasing she could put up with. But what really bothered her was Fuka's reaction. There were only 3 girls here, and when they first introduced themselves, Kokoro thought that she and Fuka might quickly become friends. But they never had the chance to open up to each other, and the words she spat out still stung. How dumb can you get? Fuka was referring to Ureshino's switch from one girl to another and wasn't particularly commenting on Kokoro. Kokoro reassured herself of this whenever she passed through the mirror into the castle, and at night when she went to sleep, but somehow Fuka's words still bothered her. Whenever Fuka visited the castle, though, she either stayed holed up in her room or, on the rare occasions, she would join them. When she joined them, would sit silently reading a book. Once, when Ureshino wasn't around, Kokoro was sitting with Masamune and the others in the game room. They grinned at her again and said, What a mess, eh? Fuka was with them. Kokoro had no idea how to respond. She nodded vaguely. And Fuka, eyes still glued to her book, said what she had said before. How dumb can you get? Kokoro froze. Fuka carried on. Guys like that, who aren't popular, always falling for the pretty girl in class or someone out of their league. Whenever I see that, it really annoys me. Whoa, that's pretty harsh. You're scaring me, Masamune said, pretending to shrink back. For Kokoro, it was hard to take Fuka avoiding her eye all the time. She bit her lip in frustration. Was that pretty girl remark aimed at her? She had no idea. She wanted to push back, but it seemed pointless. She tried to be so careful. She tried her best when she was with the 2 boys, Masamune and Subaru, not to do anything that would make the other girls feel uncomfortable. So why did things have to turn out the way they did? Unable to make amends with Fuka, Kokoro grew despondent and took a day off from visiting the castle. You can call me wherever you want, Joy Boy. I mean, if you want to call me an auntie, just call me an auntie, that's fine. A day off was an odd way of putting it, but since the beginning of July, she felt as if the castle was a junior high, a complicated place she felt she was compelled to go to. The day after she had skipped out, she went as always to check the game room, and what she heard made her gasp. Aki-chan, I know you think that, but the sequel of that film was way better. What? There's a sequel? Are you kidding me? The sequel is fantastic. Fuka and Aki were seated side by side on the sofa. Neither of them noticed Kokoro standing at the door. She didn't know what they were talking about, but could see flower-shaped cookies spread out on the tissue in front of them. That kind that Kokoro loved. Marigold-shaped cookies with chocolate cream in the center. The moment she spotted the pile, she was dying to have one, but she couldn't tell them that. She turned around before they noticed she was there and hurried off to her room, hoping against the hope that the two girls hadn't seen her. When had the two of them become so friendly, talking about things she didn't understand, chatting and having a good time? A painful, weary feeling came over her. She focused on distancing herself from them, walking quickly down the hallway. When she got to the foyer, her mirror was shining. A rainbow-colored light leading to her home, where her parents were, her real bedroom. Hoping for some respite, she gently touched the surface of the mirror. This was the first time she had run back home from the castle. She had done her best, in hope of being granted a wish, but maybe she had reached her limit. Maybe I'm just not cut out for it, she thought. Kokoro's wish to erase Miyori Sanoda. Miyori Sanoda had never spoken to her, not even once. Her first impression was that Miyori was an active, strong-willed girl, and when Miyori announced herself she was running for class president, Kokoro said to herself, "So I was right. She is that type of girl." It seemed predetermined that Miyori would be on the volleyball team. Kokoro overheard her friends discussing it, her choice without hesitation of a sports team as her after-school club, which means she was athletic. Since elementary school, it was always the sporty students who were class president, not the ones with the best grades. These were the things going through her mind in April, the beginning of the new school year. She and Miyori were in the same class, and after they had all introduced themselves, Kokoro hadn't yet put all the names and faces together. They were in Yukishina No. 5 Junior High School because they live in the same school district, but children joined from 6 different elementary schools. It was a massive junior high school. Even children from a neighboring district were given a special permission to attend, and Kokoro found very few familiar faces in her new class. The class was a hodgepodge of children from all over. There were only 3 boys and 2 girls from her elementary school. Miyori, who was from a relatively large elementary school, had plenty of friends from the start. She was also at after-school juku and seemed to have made friends with other kids there who were from different elementary schools. Miyori had never been timid or hesitant, and even in this new classroom, she always spoke her mind. Oh. Hey, Taza! Nice to see you here. Kokoro and the others, who had come from her elementary school, were more diffident. It felt as if Miyori and her group owned the place, and Kokoro and her circle were merely tenants. Kokoro didn't understand why things turned out this way, but that's how it was from the very beginning. They were all the same age, but it was as if Miyori and the other girls in her group held all the power in their class. They seemed to have the first dibs on whatever clubs they wanted. Hello. To join, and when the other girls tried to join the same club, Miyori and her gang had the power to spread rumors that these girls weren't up to it, and preventing them from joining. The power to decide who belonged, the power to decide what nicknames to use for their teachers, the freedom to choose which boys they like and which to fall in love with. The boy that Miori Sanada liked and started going out with was Chuta Ikeda, a boy from the same class in Kokoro's elementary school. Kokoro and Chuta had just been friends, nothing more. When they were preparing for the traditional appreciation dinner for the teachers just before their graduation, Chuta complained it was all a stupid waste of time. But Kokoro was impressed how, despite his complaining, when things needed to be done, he stepped up. It wasn't as if she fancied him or thought he was handsome or anything, just that she now reassessed her earlier impression of him as irresponsible. I always thought boys just couldn't do things properly, she said, a sort of throwaway comment. Eh? Chuta said. We don't just want to complicate things. But I reckon any boy would step up and do his part. We're not so lame, you know. You have no right to say that. Their conversation petered out after this. You know what? This was in the middle of April, in the bicycle parking area at school. Kokoro turned around when she heard a voice. There was Chuta standing in front of her. Ugly girls like you are the pits. What? The word rose up in her throat, but got stuck halfway. Her field of vision, with Chuta at its center, seemed to quake and swim before her eyes. Chuta's face was inscrutable. Kokoro sensed the presence of the other bodies, that someone was crouched down a short distance away, waiting with bated breath. She stood frozen to the spot as Chuta proceeded to walk off, hands in his pockets. When he got near to the hiding place where she knew her classmates were lurking, she heard laughter. Are you kidding? Didn't it seem she thought for a moment that Chuta was going to tell her he fancied her? Oh my gosh, she got that so wrong. Girls' voices. A tall figure stood up. Miori Sanada. Was that okay then? Chuta asked her curtly. Kokoro felt Miori looking at her and hurriedly looked away. Miori then declared, Chuta, I really don't fancy you. She enunciated clearly, and it took Kokoro a moment to realize the words were meant for her to overhear. Then a voice said, Don't pretend you didn't hear me, you stupid bitch! Kokoro was reeling. No one had ever spoken to her like that. You're so dumb, Miori said. You can die for all I care. Back in elementary school, Chuta Ikeda had fancied Kokoro. One of her friends had found out and told her, and Kokoro was completely shocked, but apparently all the boys knew. Once he became friends with Miori, Chuta had obviously filled her in about their past. Kokoro avoided the castle for the next 3 days. Because of the weekend, it meant she had been away for 5 days in a row. She hadn't been able to go to the junior high or the alternative school, and until now she had found the castle a refuge, which meant her feelings about it were even more complicated. All the TV she had enjoyed so much now seems insipid and dull. It was all so boring. It upset her to see the mirror in her bedroom turned towards the wall and shining as if inviting her, beckoning her. She had no idea if the rest of the group wanted her there. She decided finally that they didn't really care if she was there or not. But she wondered how they were all doing. There was no way at all contacting them from this side of the mirror. Even if, say, they wanted her to come back, she had no way of knowing. On Saturday, her parents invited her to go out shopping, but she said, I'm okay, you two go. To which her parents didn't know what to say. They looked at each other, and later, her father asked, So, what are you planning to do? How are you gonna manage if you never leave the house? Kokoro had no idea. She wished she had an answer, but the thought of bumping into someone she knew paralyzed her. What were the other kids who had also dropped out of doing? I've got to let Ureshino know. His attitude is really unsettling me. He hadn't confessed his feeling directly to her, but she hated to think others might know. She needed to have a chat with Fuka. On Monday, she passed through the mirror and emerged into the castle for the first time in 6 days. As she came through, she noticed a light blue envelope stuck on top of her mirror. It came fluttering down onto the carpet. There was no addressee or sender's name on this envelope. She picked it up curiously. It was unsealed, and inside was a sheet of paper to match the envelope. Dear Kokoro-chan, whenever you get here next, please drop by the room where we played video games. You might see something pretty wicked. Signed, Subaru. Kokoro felt her heart pound. She was elated that he had been thinking of her. She thought of how she would run away when she had seen Aki and Fuka looking so cozy, and tears welled up in her eyes. She walked speedily towards the game room where the kids were all gathered except for Rion. When she spotted Ureshino, she hesitated. Kokoro! Aki called. Hi there. Ureshino's voice was low. She expected him to launch into his usual, Hey, Kokoro-chan! Clawing self, but this time he didn't. For some reason, he avoided her eye. Kokoro struggled to explain her 5 days' absence and looked to Subaru to rescue her, but he just smiled broadly and said, It's been a while, Kokoro-chan. Masamune, game controller in hand, and watched the proceedings with his usual smirk. Something seemed off. You know, Ureshino began, and Kokoro braced herself. But his eyes was on Fuka. Fuka-chan, what do your closemates call you? Do they ever call you Fu-chan or anything? Fuka was reading her book. She spoke without lifting her eye from the page. Nope. My mom usually calls me Fuka. She looked up and gave him a glare. Why are you asking? Nah, just wondering what other people call you. Fuka opened her book again and her eyes met Kokoro's. She looked like she wanted to say something, but instead she pursed her lips and carried on reading. Despite Fuka's chilly response, Ureshino continued staring. Instinctively, Kokoro looked over at Subaru. He was the one, after all, who had written the note telling her something wicked was afoot. But Subaru was simply observing with a broad smile on his face. Kokoro had no idea what triggered it, but clearly Ureshino was now smitten with Fuka. There were only 3 girls among them, and now he had gone through each in turn. Do you want to get together for tea? Just as girls? It was Aki who invited her. Kokoro was in her room. There had been a hesitant knock at the door, and Kokoro flinched for a second. But when she opened the door, it was Aki, with Fuka hovering behind her. Well... Kokoro had yet to really chat to Fuka, and it still hurt when she recalled how the two of them had seemed to be getting on so well without her. Honestly though, Kokoro was overjoyed to be invited. Just a second, she said, and went to fetch some cookies she had brought from home. Aki led them to the dining room where Kokoro had been the previous week. I made tea, Aki said. You couldn't boil water in the kitchen, so how had she managed? Kokoro saw her taking out the thermos from a denim shoulder bag decorated with heart-shaped badges, stars, and lame. She unscrewed the top of the thermos, and a thin curl of steam rose into the air. Aki brought over 3 teacups and saucers from the kitchen, poured out the tea. Thank you. Help yourself to this if you like, Kokoro placed her box of cookies on the table. Thanks, Aki said, smiling. There's a kitchen here, but we can't use it since there's no running water or gas, which is so strange as the castle is lit up inside, and it never feels too hot or too cold. I wonder why. Wow, you're right, thought Kokoro, and glanced up in the ceiling. A chandelier hung down with the teardrops-shaped crystals, but it didn't look like any electricity was keeping it on. But there is electricity. The boys are playing video games, aren't they? You are so right. Kokoro was puzzled. I asked where they got the power, and they said they plug into the wall socket like normal. So the game room has electrical socket? There was no running water or gas, but there was definitely electricity. Kokoro heard Aki chuckled. I like that, Aki said. Your name for it, the game room. Oh, that's really all those guys do, play games. I'm going to call it that too. Game room isn't the only room with electricity. What about this chandelier? Aki flicked the switch on the wall. An orange tinted light filled the room. The next time the Wolf Queen made an appearance, maybe they should ask her. Fuka brought her hands together politely in thanks before the teacup. Thank you, she said, and bowed her head a fraction. How polite she is, thought Kokoro. Please, go right ahead, Aki said, and Kokoro followed suit. Bowing her head and voicing her thanks, she lifted her cup and sniffed a fruity aroma. It's apple tea, said Aki. It's weird how the plates and cups I used were all washed up. What? Kokoro said. The other day, I used the crockery. I couldn't wash because there's no running water. When I came back later, they were all neatly back on the shelf, as if someone had washed them. Really? I asked around, but no one gave them a touch. Maybe the Wolf Queen washes up after we have gone. Quite sweet if you think about it. Right. Kokoro pictured the Wolf Queen in her mask and dress doing the washing up. It was quite funny. She had just lifted the cup to take another sip when Aki said, That Urashino is a bit irritating though, isn't he? Getting right to the heart of the situation Kokoro had been stressing about. Kokoro gulped down her tea, its sweet and sour liquid warming the pit of her stomach so deliciously. It's a total pain, Fuka said. It's like they think any girl will do. Like they're making fun of us. Then Fuka said, he had a chat with me. Kokoro-chan, he came to ask me whether he should check if you are alright after you didn't come to the castle for a while. He wondered if you went through your mirror in the foyer, he could get into your house. You can't just turn up in a room, I said, and also it's against the rules. And after that, he just switched to me. Fuka really kicked off at him, Aki said. The thought of Urashino passing through the mirror and invading her room gave Kokoro the creeps, but she never imagined that Fuka would stand up for her like that. Thank you, Kokoro said. She tried to be sincere about it, and Fuka replied uncomfortably, no problem. Anyhow, she went on, you can't go through someone else's mirror. I tried to stop him, but Urashino held his hand out to try it. What? But it wouldn't go through. He said it felt like a normal mirror, like a hard glass surface. Kokoro had thought how awful it would be if one of them went through someone else's mirror by mistake, but now she knew she need not to worry. She breathed out, greatly relieved, and Aki chuckled. Fuka went a little too far when she spoke to Urashino. She got all emotional and told him he's mad to think love is everything. You can live without it, she said, so stop behaving like a sulky child. But those words stuck in that guy's weird antenna. Antenna? He said, Fuka, when you say you can live without love, it makes you think you have never been in love. That's so adorable. You're joking, aren't you? Aki's imitation of Ureshino's way of talking was so spot on. Kokoro was beyond surprised, shocked even. She couldn't work out at all what qualities Ureshino was looking for. He thought that you two, Aki-chan and Kokoro-chan, were out of his league, but me he could win over. Ureshino, he just made fools of us. Fuka said this to herself, sighed deeply. Kokoro felt secretly elated though, because Fuka had called her Kokoro-chan for the first time. So she doesn't dislike me after all, she thought, and she felt her legs about to buckle. I know I've already said this, but thank you, Kokoro said. What? The two girls turned in unison towards her. Because I'm no good when it comes to dating and stuff. I had an awful experience. As she said it, she realized how much she has been hoping to tell someone what had happened when she got caught up in Miori Sanada's crush on Chuta Ikeda, the incident with Chuta at the bicycle parking area, and the bullying in the school that started because of it. As she told them her story, Kokoro felt the sweat trickle down from her armpits and her ears burn. She really didn't know these two girls and didn't even know where they live. And it surprised her that she wanted to open up to them like this. Those guys came to my house. I was doing homework, waiting for my mom to come back. The doorbell rang. Who could it be this late? Probably a delivery. Coming! Kokoro called. Kokoro Anzai! A voice bellowed. It wasn't Miori's voice. It was a girl's voice Kokoro didn't recognize. She knew her face and that she was a class president, but that was it. The girl was a friend of Miori's. She suddenly found it odd that they knew she was at home. A chill rose upwards from her ankles. The front door was locked, as her mother always insisted when she was alone, and beyond it she sensed the presence not of one or two girls, but a crowd. Someone began pounding on the door. Come out! We know you are in there! Go around the back, we can see through a window. Kokoro's flesh began to crawl. Let's teach her a lesson, someone said. Teach her a lesson? Kokoro didn't really know what it meant. But when they went to the junior high, Kokoro and a friend had worried about it and talked about how they should do to avoid getting taught a lesson by the older kids. Lesson, like in school, or more like punishment. The two ideas spun around her head painfully, absurdly, and she started to tremble. And these weren't even older kids, but girls the same age as her. Girls no different from her. She raced back to the living room. She had to close the curtains in all the rooms as fast as she could. She had no clue if she could do it all in time. There was still light enough outside for her to see several silhouettes and the shadows of their bikes. Tojo-san, it must be her. One awful scenario after another bubbled in her mind. She makes me totally sick. She's such an emo. Let's teach her a lesson. Moe-chan, you live near her, don't you? Show us where she lives. Kokoro couldn't tell if Tojo-san was with them. A part of her desperately wanted to know. Another part wanted to avoid knowing at all costs. Tojo-san was as cute as a doll, a girl she admired and wanted so much to be friends with, and just picturing her standing outside, and who knows what sort of look she had on her face, was enough to make Kokoro choke. Come out, you wuss! Miori Sanada's voice. Kokoro held her breath and lay flat against the floor next to the sofa. Outside the window was the lawn of the garden, lined by a low fence. Kokoro lay completely still. Bang, 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 bang. They pounded at the door. So many voices. She figured there must be about 10 of them, repeating each other's calls. If the door weren't locked, she felt like Miori and her pals would march right into her house, and she felt that if that happened, they would find her, drag her outside, and kill her. She was so terrified she couldn't utter a sound. In the low light, she could make out more shadows lurking beyond the curtains. They reached out their hands into the window. She heard several clicks as someone rattled it. She realized with a flood of relief that the windows were still shut. It was locked after all. "It won't open," she heard someone say. One of her classmates' voice, sounding no different from when the kids were talking in lessons. She curled up, put her head between her knees, and trembled, more like a turtle than a rabbit. As she sat there, Kokoro silently asked her parents to forgive her. These kids she didn't know had trespassed into the grounds of their house while they were out, and had trampled over her mother's precious garden. "I'm so sorry, so sorry, so sorry." "She's not coming out." Miori's voice sounded less savage. She started to sound tearful. "She's a total wuss, is what she is," she said in a faint, weepy tone as one of the girls said, "Come on, Miori, don't cry." All the kids cared was about themselves. She flutters her eyes at someone else's boyfriend. "She really loves it when they touch her," another girl said. "He never touched me," Kokoro thought, but her tongue was stuck at the roof of her mouth, and she couldn't even whisper. In the darkening room, the cold floor chilled Kokoro's legs. She was still in her uniform. "I can't forgive her," a voice said. Kokoro couldn't tell anymore if it was Miori speaking. "I don't care if you don't forgive me," she thought, "because I'm never ever going to forgive any of you." Kokoro had no idea how much time had passed. It seemed like forever. Eventually, Miori and her gang seemed to grow tired of the game, and she heard them call their goodbyes to each other. "See you tomorrow." Kokoro stayed glued to the spot, fearful it was a trap. The sound of her mother's key in the front door quietly reverberated in the darkness. "Kokoro?" she called out, sounding uncertain. Kokoro felt a slight pain in her jaw. Tears came to her eyes. "Mom! Mom! Mom!" She wanted to cry out, leap into her mother's arm, and sob her eyes out. But she didn't move. Her mother walked into the sitting room and switched on the light. Kokoro looked up for the first time. "Kokoro?" Her mother was standing there with her grey work suit. "Mom," she said, her voice husky. "Why is the light off?" Her mother asked. "You startled me. I thought you hadn't come home yet, and I was worried." I was worried. The words struck a chord deep inside her. Why? She didn't know. "I just fell asleep," Kokoro said. Kokoro tried to convince herself that she hadn't been at home that day. Miori and the others had simply pounded on the door of an empty house, trampled over the patio, gone round and round the outside of the house. But nothing actually happened. Nothing at all. She never was about to be killed. And yet the next day, she said, "I have a stomach ache." And she really did. It was no lie. Her mother chimed in. "Kokoro, you do look pale. Are you okay?" And that's when Kokoro stopped going to school. A long time later, Kokoro realized that she was holding out a faint hope. Wouldn't her parents notice that the garden had been trampled on? Even if Kokoro didn't say anything, wouldn't some neighbor tell her about the Anzai's home being surrounded by a mob of unruly kids? And maybe they would have reported it to the police. But none of that happened. It might have been more impact if she had told her parents about the incident immediately, but if she brought it up right now, This event that changed Kokoro's middle school life forever, they might not even listen. And now she deeply regretted not having instantly leapt into her mother's arms in tears. Kokoro hopelessly realized now that if she put the incident into words, it would boil down to something so lame. They might have come all the way here to pick a fight with her, but in the end, they didn't. That's how adults would react. And with that, they would put it out of their minds. Those girls didn't wreck anything or physically hurt her. But Kokoro's experience of the incident went way beyond that. It was something far more decisive and intense. What if she went to school again defenseless? Would she be able to protect herself? The only place she could go now to freely from her bedroom was the castle. If I'm in the castle, she started to think, then I'll be safe. Only the castle beyond the mirror could offer her complete protection. Aki and Fuka listened to Kokoro, their eyes fixed on her until the end. She had trouble speaking at first. She spoke slowly, deliberately choosing her words, and halfway she found she couldn't look them in the eyes anymore. Her voice broke off at points and she choked up. Aki and Fuka didn't rush her, but patiently heard her out. Is this a problem that's still going on? Aki asked after a while. Kokoro explained that this was why she had stopped going to the school. She was well aware that Aki didn't want her to go there. In fact, Kokoro really didn't know how Aki would react to her story. She might dismiss it as nothing very major. Yes, it's still going on, Kokoro said, and as soon as she did, Aki stood up from her dining chair and patted Kokoro on the head with her right hand, messing up her hair. What are you doing? Said Kokoro, her hair askew. I'm proud of you, Aki said, her eyes gentle and consoling. I'm proud of you. That must have been so hard to take. Fuka, who had been silent, held out a handkerchief to Kokoro. Her eyes had the same soft glow as Aki's. Kokoro accepted Fuka's handkerchief, held her breath, then quietly inhaled. Long and deep. That's the end of the July chapter. Perfectly on time for our 2 hours reading session. Perfect. What do you guys think? How are you guys doing there? You guys have any advice for me? Am I reading too fast? Am I reading too slow? Am I too dramatic? Is everything fine? Hey, Yujun! How do you like it so far? 2 chapters today because they are like perfectly fitted for 2 hours. It's really good, and I took like a short break in between because I need to check on my cat. He's okay. He seems fine. Just a short update about my kitty. His scans came back not great. We need to monitor him for the next 3 months or so. Yeah, an hour per chapter seems to be good, but this time it's 2 chapters in one, so it's pretty. I think that's pretty okay. Zaril Shiku, hello, nice to meet you. I think this is the first time I've seen you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Zaril. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I was hoping it's an hour per chapter, but I think this time June and July were a bit short and they fit in pretty well as a 2 hour read. So I glimpsed through chapter August. I think it's a bit long. That could be an hour. I think. I think. But yes, thank you so much, Zariel, for being here. Thank you. How's everyone doing? How's everyone's early week? Wednesday. How's everyone's Wednesday? The bump of the week that everyone hates. Aw. Deadlines are looming. Do you need a tarot reading to help you? Anyways, yes. Now is the time for you to redeem anything you want. A quote on love, a quote, a poem reading session, a tarot reading session. What else? Yeah. Oh, hell yeah! This time I'm ready for you. Give me your instructions. Ooh, you picked 9. My favorite number. Yes, my viewers, I also do a very simple, a very simple card of the day or question of the day tarot reading. I do not believe in the spiritual voodoo boo boo stuff. I just play tarot card as something that is fun and also helpful in the sense that it, like, you know, it can encourage us or direct us to something that maybe it's in our heart, but we just didn't realize it. So here you go. Let's go. 9 card of the day for Yu Jung. Shuffle 9 times. Pick from spread. Here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Spread out. Today we are picking a card of the day to represent Yu Jung's day. Are you ready? Got the card. You have Justice. This is the first time I drew a major arcana from our reading. Justice! Card 11. Oh. Keywords for Justice. The 11th card in the major arcana. Keywords: rectification, decision, finding balance, legal matters. So the Justice card tells you to look to your inner self for guidance. Don't rely solely on human advisors. Deliberate, calmly and carefully weigh all the factors before taking an action or reaching a decision. If you are involved in a legal matter and justice appears, you can expect things to proceed smoothly, fairly, and in an objective manner. Sometimes justice says that you need to right a wrong or rectify a matter. A card of karma, it suggests you are reaping what you have sown, or it may advise you to become more balanced, temperate, or fair-minded. Oh my god, Twisty wants it too. Damn. spread right side. Pick from the right side, huh? So yeah, for usual, you got justice. To be fair, to be completely honest, I've never been really good at reading justice. If anything, I feel like justice is just finding balance in your life right now. Like if you are, like if you are like, if you are like you are studying, and you are also playing a game. Why not both? So just chill, bro. Find balance in doing what you want to do today, and yeah. But it could also mean that there's something that you need to rectify, as in correct them. So look out for things that is in your look out for things today that you think that you should rectify to improve it, I guess. Right? Alright, Twisty wants to shuffle 6 and then spread right side. Okay. For Twisty, card of the day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No problem. You claim it with your banana points, you know. Then we are looking for the card of the day to represent Twisty's day. Spread right. Alright. There you go. Oh. Whoa, Twisty. Ace of Pentacle, huh? You're getting some money today. No. Okay, Ace of Pentacles is a very, 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 very good card. The keywords for it is a financial start, a new opportunity, a new focus, or a new ambition. You are starting something new today. And if you put your heart into it, you will succeed. I mean, it's just a saying for everything, right? Like if you put your heart into doing something, it will succeed. But it doesn't mean that it will 100% come true. But at least if you work very hard on it, you won't regret your hard work, right? So, Ace of Pentacle. If you Google the picture of Ace of Pentacle, is a hand holding a huge coin. So you are being handed this huge opportunity, or you are in charge of this big opportunity. It really depends on how you look at the card, right? It's you are being handed, or you already have it in you. So the card symbolizes the start of a new business, financial venture, or other practical endeavor. It represents sowing seeds, which means like putting forth.
So big.
Yes, it is indeed so big. Putting forth the initial effort, monetary, physical, or otherwise, needed to achieve the success that you desire. There are opportunities coming to your way, or at least opportunities coming to you today in one way or another. I don't know what kind of opportunity, but it could be anything. So be pragmatic, be realistic, and be willing to work hard to bring your dreams come true. An extremely good card. Ace of Pentacles is like one of the best cards in the deck, I would say. DM, would you like to do yours for free without claiming? Let me know. Taza is just having fun. Oh my god. Is Dian still here? I don't see Dian. Oh, okay. Never mind. The answer that lock off already. That's alright. So yeah, Ace of Pentacles. Crazy. Great card. Alright. Oh, Neuro. Wait, I forgot who Neuro is. Neuro, can you... Are you in game, Neuro? Can I call you something else other than Neuro? I forgot. I remember you could be someone. But I don't remember who. I'm so sorry. Especially. Card of the day. Shuffle 3 times, pick from the top. Okay. Very straightforward. We are now... Are you just a lurker? It's okay. I also... I don't mind lurkers as well. Anyway. Card of the day for Neuro 0060. Shuffle 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Pick from the top. Your card of the day is... Oh my god. Oh, 5 of Pentacles. Not a good card. I mean, there's nothing such as like good or bad card. It's just how do I read this? There's certain needs today that you need to pay attention to. Think of 5 of Pentacles. The key words for 5 of Pentacles is poverty, disappointment, loss, lack, restriction, disorder, and worry. If you are in some kind of need of help today, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's something today that might disappoint you. I mean, I can't tell the future. Tarot is not about reading the future, but it could be like I don't know, a warning of sort. There could be something that you might feel disappointed in, but you shouldn't be too harsh on yourself about it. It could also mean that you are not using your resources wisely, or that you are not aware of your own potential. So it could really mean anything. Like this kind of readings, right? When it comes to card of the day, it's a bit difficult because I don't know you in person. I know Twisty in person, so I could like give him pointers very easily. I kind of know Yujung, like his situation a little bit, because he has been asking for tarot reading and gave me some information about himself. It's all about psychology really when it comes to, like, you know, reading tarot. Like, me knowing what you are going through usually means that I could draw a connection. Not saying that I'm bullshitting you or anything, but I can draw connection from the card to your current situation. So I'm not entirely sure what Neuro is going through on his or her day-to-day life, but 5 of Pentacles usually means a lot of worries. You are worried about something, or that you are not realizing that something bad is happening, and that you are not using your resources properly. So try to pay attention to your own ability to solve problems. I think if you encounter anything that you think that reminds you of the 5 of Pentacles card, try to remember that You do have the resources to solve the problem. You just need to not like immediately give up on the situation, I think. Or if you are in need of help, don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay? Don't be shy. You can always say, hey, I'm sorry, I have this thing that I need to do, but I need a pair of hands to help me to carry this thing with me. You know, just a figurative way to say it, basically. Don't be afraid to ask for help, alright? Is that okay for you, Nero? Did I bum you out? I'm sorry. Just always remember that no matter what you face in life, or just today, not just today, like in life. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah, I'm very good at making a bad card into a good card. Just remember that in life, whenever you stumble upon something that is not in your own mindset, you think that it's not good, most people will just be like, why do I bother, or why do I continue? Always remember that you always have resources within yourself to solve it. And if you don't have the resources within yourself to solve the problem, you have the resources around you that you can ask for help. So be kind to yourself, and remember that your life is literally on the palm of your two hands, and you are able to do anything with it, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And with that, I'm ending today's stream by saying I hope you guys will have an enjoyable midweek, and that I hope that you all will be able to find the resources that you all need to either help yourself or help other people. Alright? Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it as always. And thank you for claiming on the tarot card readings. I really enjoy doing tarot readings. And it's also a very good practice for myself to read for other people, because I usually just read for myself. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Have a great midweek. I'll see you guys again on this coming Friday, 11 a.m. GMT +8 for the next Noodable. We'll be reading August chapter of Lonely Castle in the Mirror. For now, thank you once again. I love you all, and have a great lunch, and have an amazing day ahead. Bye.